Hello everyone and welcome, it's Cirrus here, and today I'll be bringing you my new heavy direct damage power build for the Ranger. The purpose of the build is to hit hard from afar while still maintaining the skills needed to deal with targets that have closed in. This build covers the equipment, skills and traits of the build, so without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, let's move into our equipment. For our weapons, armor and jewelry stats we want full berserkers, as this allows us to hit really hard. Our rune of choice is the Superior Runes of the Traveller, as this allows us to replace the Signet of the Hunt for some better utility while still giving us some nice bonuses. For our longbow we want the Superior Sigil of Accuracy and Perception, as this allows us to keep our crit chance up, and we also have some extra nice damage from the Superior Sigil of Air. On our Greatsword we want to take the Superior Sigil of Energy and Perception. The Superior Sigil of Energy is great as we get that extra evade if we need to change to the Greatsword to dodge and reposition, and we also have the Superior Sigil of Perception to help us keep our crit chance up as well. Now you don't have to use the Greatsword, as both the axe or warhorn, the sword or axe warhorn combo work pretty well. This works especially great if you're in a group, as you can pre-buff before combat with your warhorn. Now with the sigils, you still want to run the same ones as with the Greatsword, as they work pretty well and they're interchangeable between the two weapon sets. If you want to run both weapons, you will actually have to buy extra copies of the sigils, which can be a bit costly, as the Superior Sigils of Energy right now are running at about 10 gold each, so prepare for a bit of a hit to your pocket if you're poor like me. Anyway, that's it for the equipment. Let's move on to the next section. In this section here, I will cover our pets and weapon skills for the build. For our pets, I like to take the Snow Leopard and Owl, as they both do great damage while still having some soft CC through their F2 skills. Feel free to swap in different pets to suit your own needs, such as canines for heavy CC or spiders for ranged immobilized and poison. For our longbow skills, we start off with our number one skill, Long Range Shot. Long Range Shot deals excellent damage in its long range bracket. It's where a lot of our damage will come from in this build. Due to our traits and the extra range given to skills, we can actually hit targets beyond 1900 units, which I can demonstrate here by using Barrage on the ground, which has a radius of 360 at its maximum range of 1500, and I can still attack the target with my long range shot, and I'm still hitting it, as you can see here. For our number 2 skill, we have Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire fires out 10 shots during a 2.5 second channel, with each shot applying 1 stack of 14 second vulnerability and dealing some damage. Recently, Rapid Fire received a massive change in where its cast time was halved, which has made the skill become an excellent source of damage for us, regardless of our target's distance to us. This wasn't without a downside though, as now it's harder for us to use it as a tracker on stealth targets, as the channel is now a shorter duration. Our number 3 skill for us on the longbow is Hunter's Shot. Hunter's Shot provides us with a 3-second stealth when it hits its target, allowing for us to spend a third of the combat in stealth due to our traits. This is great for evading and repositioning in battle, and also getting our target selection dropped off on us. Its secondary effect grants our pets swiftness, allowing for our pets to keep up with our targets. For skill number 4, we have Point Blank Shot. Point Blank Shot is a ranged knockback skill which knockbacks targets further if they are closer to us. If we use Hunter's Shot after this, we can really create some space for us, as we can drop target on us while also creating some distance at the same time. Point Blank Shot also acts like a mini stun, as there is a small period where a target hit with Point Blank Shot will be unable to act, and it will also interrupt skills. Last up for the longbow, we have Barrage. Barrage deals a large amount of damage through 12 damaging pulses and a 360 unit radius ground target AoE. It applies 2-second cripple per pulse, resulting in up to 24 seconds of cripple from Barrage. It works great in choke points, or when using it as area denial on top of us or on top of a point. For Greatsword number 1, we have the Auto Attack Chain. The Auto Attack Chain does average damage but has an evade attached to the final hit of the chain. It also recently received a buff giving the last hit some more damage, making it an alright skill to have. For skill number 2, we have Maul. Maul does a big burst of damage in an AoE cone in front of you, hitting up to 5 targets at once. This is pretty nice when you use it in combination with skill number 5 due to the damage boost we get from Moment of Clarity. Next up, we have Swoop. Swoop is an odd skill due to its 2-part nature. It's a half dash, half leap attack type skill. The attack portion does a decent amount of damage and has an evade attached to it. It's a great skill for moving around due to the distance it covers, and you can use it to reposition if you're in danger, but just make sure you aren't crippled or chilled, otherwise you won't be able to cover that much distance using the skill. Our number 4 skill is Counterattack. Counterattack is a 3-second block that will do a knockback towards any target that hits it in melee range. You can block multiple range attacks with it, as they won't trigger the counterattack, and you can also manually activate the skill, which will, instead of doing a kick, it will throw you'll throw your greatsword toward the target and do a decent amount of damage with it, and while also crippling it. It won't deal as much damage as the counterattack, but it still hits for quite a bit. For skill number 5 on the greatsword, we have Hilt Bash. Hilt Bash does a 1.5 second daze to our target. If we're flanking our target, we will do a 1.5 second stun instead. Due to our trait selection, this is doubled to 3 seconds, and if we interrupt a target's cast, then we get a 50% damage bonus to our first attack as well. Without the trait, we would only be getting a 50% damage bonus to our pet, but because we have the trait, we get it to our pet and ourselves. It's almost always worth following up this skill with Maul, as it's our single hardest hitting attack on the greatsword itself. Alright, that there covers the weapons we use in the build. Let's move on to the next section of the video. Alright, in this section here we'll be covering the utility skills used in the build. For our healing skill, we take Healing Spring. Healing Spring is the heal for us, as it provides us with a nice water field along with a condition cleanse for not only us but any ally standing in the field as well. It also provides nice healing through its regeneration that it grants. We can use our leap finisher through it for some additional healing, along with the blast finisher if we took the Warhorn instead of the greatsword. Our first utility skill is Lightning Reflexes. Lightning Reflexes is an awesome skill that evades backwards from the enemy. It covers a decent distance and is also a stun break, which means if you get surprise jumped, you can always create some distance and re-evaluate your position. It grants a decent amount of vigor and works through Immobilize as well, which is excellent. Its decently low cooldown allows it to have some nice reusability. On top of that, it also deals a tiny bit of damage as well. For utility slot number 2, we have Signet of Renewal. Signet of Renewal provides us with a free condition cleanse every 10 seconds. If we end up being condition bombed, we can always activate the Signet of Renewal to pull conditions from allies within 600 units of your pet. It won't be able to pull in conditions if it's dead, so make sure you swap if the pet's dead or too far away from you, as this will put the pet beside you and bring out a live one if it's dead. The Signet features a decently low cooldown, so we can get some good reusability out of it. To top this all off, the Signet is also a stun break, which gives us another option to break out of stuns. For our utility slot number 3, we have Signet of the Wild. Signet of the Wild received an awesome buff recently, turning it into a beast of a skill. It provides us with 8 seconds of stability, 25% extra damage, and 50% movement speed increase, making it just completely awesome. Its passive effect also provides us with a nice little bonus regen as well, which can take care of minor wounds. The Signet features a low cooldown of 48 seconds, allowing us to make great use of it, as we don't have to worry about it not being up for the next fight. The Signet itself also affects our pet as well, so the pet gets all those buffs too. Last up, we have the elite skill Entangle. Entangle recently received some major changes that vastly increased its reusability. Entangle summons roots that immobilize and bleeds up to 5 targets around you for 5 seconds. The initial application of the root is blockable, but the pulses from the roots themselves are unblockable. We can now cast Entangle far more often, making it great in team fights, as you can get it down without having to worry if it's going to survive the full 20 seconds, which before it normally wouldn't survive the full 20 seconds even if there was just one target. Now that it lasts only 5 seconds, it also has a much shorter cooldown, meaning that we can get it out more often. The AoE 5-second root is still really good, as it puts more indecisiveness into the enemy, as they have to think about, do they wait out the 5 seconds or do they focus on killing the root. Due to its low cooldown, we can use it in one fight without having to worry if it's going to come up for the next fight. The cooldown itself has been reduced to 60 seconds, and if you get the trait, it also becomes 48 seconds, which is very, very good. Alright, that there covers the utility skills. Now let's move on to the traits. For our traits, we have a spread of 6 in marksmanship, 6 in skirmishing, and 2 in wilderness survival. This trait spread gives us access to the traits we need for the build, and also the inherent stats from the trait lines themselves help greatly in adding to our damage. Our first minor trait in the marksmanship line is Opening Strike. This trait allows us and our pet to add 5 stacks of vulnerability to our targets from our initial hit in combat. Due to the other traits we have, this trait makes our first hit in combat always a crit as well, making this an alright trait to have as an adept minor trait. Next up we have the trait Signet Mastery. We take Signet Mastery in this build to take advantage of our enhanced signets. With this trait we are able to reduce the cooldowns of our 2 signets by 20%, allowing us to use signets more often. This reduces our Signet of the Wild to 48 seconds and our Signet of Renewal also to 48 seconds. Our next minor trait is Alpha Training. This simple trait causes our pets to also have Opening Strike, which applies 5 stacks of vulnerability on their first strike. For our Master Major trait we have Eagle Eye. Eagle Eye is an amazing trait for our build as it increases our range by 300 and grants us 5% extra damage to our longbow skills. The trait synergizes very well with our Grandmaster trait and our heavy use of the longbow, which makes it an excellent pick for our Master Major trait over the other choices of Piercing Arrows or Spotter. Our Grandmaster minor trait is Precise Strike. Precise Strike is again a simple trait which makes our opening strike a guaranteed crit, which means that we always want our first attack to be our long range shot in the full damage bracket for maximum effect from this trait. Our final trait in the marksmanship line is the Grandmaster Major trait Read the Wind. Read the Wind was a pretty strong trait as it was in its previous incarnation, but this recent balance patch gave it an extra effect. The extra effect is a 10% attack speed increase with our longbow, which means we get our attacks out faster, meaning more damage for us. Read the Wind increases our missile velocity by 100%, making it so we no longer get out of range when hitting targets at a long distance. This, in combination with Eagle Eye, basically increases our effective range to over 1800, as the extra distance given to our attacks to account for movement protection can now be fully utilized even if the target is moving, making this trait a must-have trait for us in this build. For our first trait in skirmishing we have Tailwind. Tailwind grants us a short duration of swiftness each time we swap weapons. If we were to constantly swap weapons it would be over 50% uptime, but because we are spending most of our time on the longbow, it's not the greatest trait for our build. It does however increase our maneuverability when swapping to our off weapon set, as we can reposition quicker and stick to our target easier. The Adept Major trait we take in skirmishing is Companion's Might. Companion's Might grants our pet might every time we critically hit, which works well in our build as we have a very high crit rate. With our multi-hit skills such as Rapid Fire and Barrage, we end up proccing this multiple times, allowing our pet to get a hefty damage boost. For our next minor trait we have Furious Grip. Furious Grip grants us 5 seconds of fury every time we weapon swap. One trick we can do with Furious Grip and Tailwind is before we start combat we can fire a shot with our longbow at our target, swap to our off weapon set before the shot hits. What this will do is put us into combat and we can swap back to the longbow to get some fury and swiftness for some extra damage and mobility at the start of a fight. For our Master Major trait we have Quick Draw. Quick Draw reduces the cooldowns of our longbow skills by 20%, which means more rapid fires, higher stealth uptime, quicker access to knockbacks, and more barrage for us due to this trait. Overall a very nice trait for our build considering our primary weapon is the longbow. The Grandmaster minor trait in skirmishing we are given is Hunter's Tactics. Hunter's Tactics provides us with a 10% increased damage boost when flanking our target, overall a very simple damage boost. For it to count as flanking, our target's front facing 90-degree arc simply has to be not facing us, and any of our attacks will receive a 10% damage bonus. A very nice trait to have, especially in group fights when our targets will most likely not be facing towards us. Our Grandmaster Major trait in skirmishing is Moment of Clarity. Moment of Clarity increases the durations of our stuns by 100%, effectively turning our Hilt Bash on the Greatsword into a 3-second stun. On top of this, if we interrupt an enemy's cast, us and our pet receive a 50% damage bonus boost on our next attack. If you're not running the Greatsword, however, I recommend swapping this trait for Pet's Prowess, as Pet's Prowess synergizes very well with our earlier selection of Companion's Might. The trait Pet's Prowess increases our pet's crit damage by 30%. Now back to Moment of Clarity. You can also activate Moment of Clarity off your longbows and knockback, which I recommend following it up with the long range shot, as it'll get a large damage bonus. If you use Hilt Bash on the Greatsword, then I recommend using more afterwards, as that's the largest amount of damage that you can get on the Greatsword. Our second to last trait in the build is Natural Vigor. Natural Vigor is a minor adept trait in Wilderness Survival. It's a very basic trait that grants us a passive plus 25% endurance regeneration. Last but not least, we have our final trait, Wilderness Knowledge. Wilderness Knowledge reduces the cooldowns of our survival skills by 20%, which means that our Entangle is now on a 48-second cooldown and our Lightning Reflexes is now on a 32-second cooldown. Overall, an alright trait to wrap up our build. Alright, that's it for the trades. All in all, we have a great longbow build that features good offense combined with enough defense to survive. We draw offensive power through our traits, equipment and skills while maintaining some defensive measures through our weapons and utilities. It's a very fun build to play, and not only is it easy, but it's also very effective. If you wish to see some gameplay footage, please click the link in the description below or in the annotation on screen. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click the subscribe button below and like, favorite and share. If you have any comments, feedback, questions or suggestions, leave them below in the comments and I'll see what ILBird can do for you. Thanks for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next video.